Monday has arrived. It's the start of another week. Hope you're all well, and thank you for joining me for another one of my videos. Let's get straight on in with the price action analysis. So, somebody yesterday said the Bitcoin might pull back to 62,000, and it looks like it has. You can see what happened really nicely here with the Bollinger Bands. So when I recorded yesterday's video, price was here, and I suggested that the volatility had cooled off significantly over the weekend on the 4-hour time frame. And that can either then expand to the upside or the downside. And if indeed it started to close 4-hour candles below the midpoint and volatility expanded, then there would probably be a move initially to 64.5 and then something around the 62 mark, which is pretty much what's happened. So there we are. Now, well, what's next? I can hear you asking. We can see now that the 4-hour momentum has crossed below the zero line. It's a fair way away from it at the moment, and it won't turn green again unless Bitcoin gets above, on a 4-hour time frame, 64, nearly 65,000. Call it 64.5 for now, which it's a fair way away from. And 64.5, lo and behold, is up at these areas, which may turn into resistance now. Remember, this is all on the 4-hour. Okay, I'm going to go on to the higher time frames in a moment. But if Bitcoin does get some traction, which I would expect it to, in fact, let's have a blue line of randomness. So remember, this is just for the 4-hour time frame. Blue line of randomness. So if Bitcoin does bounce off that, I would expect it might get some resistance then in and around this 4-hour line of randomness. And so you get a little range. So if it does come a bit further down, I would expect it to get some support and then maybe see how things go. But yeah, I think that's the range of support resistance that would be logical to expect. You know, maybe for the next few days, we'll see what happens going into the second half of the week. So that's the 4-hour. Now the daily. So the daily, and I mentioned this again in yesterday's video, you can see the Bollinger Bands cooling off, so volatility contracting on the daily. And when that happens, most of the time you get a move towards the midpoint. And the midpoint is at just about 62,000. And as I said in yesterday's video, I think a pullback to there is all completely fine, because it's only somewhere between the 0.5 and the 382 on a Fibonacci retracement. So that would be a very shallow retracement within this uptrending move. That's probably kind of all blown out of the water, or this uptrending move would be blown out of the water, I would suggest, with daily closures back below here, coming in at 57, which is a fair way away from at the moment. So I'm still leaning towards another move to the upside next, but you just have to be wary that, you know, this is starting to look a bit like a daily top now, similar to this one. And what would make me a bit more cautious about the next move on this daily time frame being to the upside would be daily closures back below the midpoint on the Bollinger Band, which is coming in around 62,000. You can see the momentum is, well, it depends where today closes. So for momentum to continue green and up, Bitcoin needs to close today, which happens in 4.5 hours time, back above 65,400. And it's $2,000 away from that at the moment. So I think that's unlikely. And therefore momentum will cool off. And it already is cooling off with a pullback pretty much down to that midpoint on the Bollinger Band. So yeah, I mean, my optimism, I think, is still well placed. But it's just been challenged slightly on the lower time frames, the 4-hour and the daily. The weekly, as it's Monday, so you can see both the perpetual exchanges, so Bybit and Bitstamp and all them, or those are the two that I can see. Those are the two I've got saved on my trading view. Close the weekly above the midpoint on the Bollinger Band, and they're pulling back so far as we've discussed. CME also closed above the midpoint on the Bollinger Band and is also closing, moving down on this fine Monday. Way too early to start to talk about the weekly time frame because there's a long time to go. But you can see a weekly closure back below. Well, it's currently around, it's probably about 62.5 on Bybit. Wouldn't look so good, to be honest. Whereas weekly closures above 62.5 would look okay. Whatever, it's still consolidation. Bitcoin is still waiting to have an impulsive move on a weekly time frame, and it hasn't done anything like that since February this year, which was this candle that led to that move up there. And if you remember, this consolidation period was well over 6 months. It was 30 weeks. So if you take it from there, whoa, to the actual breakout week was there. It was 31 weeks. Okay, it's current consolidation. If you take it from there, so the same sort of tether point to this week, 29 weeks. So maybe there will be this week, the next week, prior to a big move. That would take us into October, obviously. It would take us probably into the second week of October. So I'm still very much biased at that big move with volatility expansion on the weekly time frame is likely to be to the upside because the trend is still your friend and the trend is still to the upside. But I may be wrong. And, price action will, of course, tell us. So I think I'll leave it like that for Monday's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. So take home message. I think support around 62 on a 4-hour and daily. 4-hour first, obviously. Resistance probably around, well, you can probably round it to 65, although it's a bit less. Somewhere between 64.5 and 65, likely to be resistance for now on the 4-hour dailies, and therefore a consolidation in between those two. Just is that, and nothing inspirational in either direction. Okay, please give me a thumbs up, share, and check me out on Twitter. And I'll see you tomorrow for Tuesday's price action analysis video. Take care. See you tomorrow.